All right. Well, thanks again, Martha, for coming on. We really do appreciate it. We had a lot of people on engaging with us. And one of the things that I thought would be great, Glamour Property actually asked a question about differentiating between wealth and income. And so I wanted to see if you could speak a little bit about maybe even using the money today, money tomorrow analogy you used at the beginning.
Yeah. So income to us is what we live on, right? We get a salary and we really truly try to budget and live within that salary. I mean, just like anyone would have to. Other monies that we may have or acquire from, then we take that money and, we segment it and use it only for investments. And we just keep reinvesting that money, right? So if I buy a note and I sell a partial, I get that money back. I take that money and I buy another note. And so I don't ever mix it or actually move any of that money into money that we would need for income to live on. And so if you can separate the two in your mind too, and separate them into different accounts, then it helps just to grow the wealth portion. That's really what happens there with that cash flow coming in every month. If you buy notes, if you can just hold on to them, or if you need to sell part of the cash flow and then buy another note and, then just do the same thing over and over again.
It's focus. It's focus. Any discipline in life, great musicians, great athletes, anybody that's had any success, business owners, business leaders, whatever that is. If you look at their one single trait, they're probably unbelievably good at focus. And so this is, Brian, I think the thing that we just feel like is a key is Martha focuses on this. I mean, she's not unclear and she knows where, and as she said, she's even got like separate checking accounts. Yeah. So that all of a sudden you don't wake up and figure out you're spending your wealth money on eating.
Man, that's so true. And what's beautiful is this isn't something in theory. This is literally something Martha has proven works, right? Even from starting just flipping notes, because maybe you're somebody who you're saying, look, I'm brand new to this. I need that money today. Wealth seems like this daunting task. What's amazing is Martha is sharing with you in her story that not only was she flipping notes to make that income today, but she's saying with a smaller amount of money, you can just start with that and use that capital over and over. It's not about coming up with massive amounts of extra money every single year. That's what's so impressive about this model that she's put together and why they've been able to create such a legacy, without just saying, yeah, I fell into $10 million. It just fell into my lap and I use that to build my wealth, right? So it's really, really great. Another question that came up from Deb and Kev was talking just about the tools. If you want to share a little bit about what are some things that kind of help you, in the business, but also help really succeed in the business? Mm-hmm. What are some from the tool side?
Well, one of the things that you have to do initially is, of course, we use Excel, of course, right?
Yeah.
But is, you've got to look at it on an Excel sheet or somewhere where you can say, okay, if I acquire this loan for $80,000, how many months do I have to sell to recoup $80,000? So you've got to look at the loan itself. How long is it will it pay out? And then how much do you need to sell to recoup your investment? And so make sure the numbers work, right? And then, the other thing is just, having a process to that to where, at the end, when the loan reverts back to you, well, how many months am I going to collect? And how is that going to pay out? So, how many years will it pay out? Like, when does it revert back? So just kind of keeping track of those type of things. So you can see the big picture and know, well, there's going to be some loans that just won't work. Right. You really can't acquire it and sell the partial and make it work because you have to sell almost the whole loan. So that doesn't work. The other thing that is a really good tool with passive investors is so if you have a loan and it appraises for significantly more than what it sold for, that brings their investment to value way down. right? It brings my loan to value down. And then for the passive investor, it brings their investment to value down. And so, you know, if they have to lower the investment to value, well, that gives them a big cushion between what they're investing and what the property is worth. You know, so if they're investing 50,000, but the property's worth 150, for example, well, that gives them a big cushion. So it makes them feel really comfortable about, you know, investing their money in that particular asset.
Yeah. And I think that one of the beautiful parts about the Excel spreadsheet is that it's so malleable, right? Like you're just plugging and playing, you're coming up with numbers that work for you. But does this also work for my investors? Okay, we need to change it around, and not get bogged down to where you're looking for, I need a software that does this for me. So much of this is just using the creativity that you've been taught to say, all right, this is what I need to make this note work. How can I use this spreadsheet to make the numbers also work for my investors, right? You've got to be able to justify the whole picture. Kind of like Martha said, you've got to make sure this is a win-win. And when you do, it's really beautiful.
And so like with my passive investors, when we start out, I'll do like an executive summary for them that, you know, just to kind of lay it out a little easier for them. But then as we go down the road, you know, I can copy what I need, the information I need them to see on a spread and put it onto a spreadsheet and send them a spreadsheet. Yeah. You know, but it's just the educational part up front, you know.
Right.
And you and just so this isn't all a mystery, people say, what is Note School? Note School teaches all of those things that Martha just mentioned. Like what does an executive summary look like? How much information is on it? What is this magic Excel spreadsheet they're talking about? It's this hard to use. I mean, like, of course, we've learned that if you can show people these steps, it kind of gets the fog away, removes the mystery, and it's down to it. But, you know, it's funny, like, I can't tell you how much money in partials Martha has sold with having a trusted relationship with a passive investor and literally just sending them a poop sheet, right? A little information sheet, you know, whatever you call it, right?
Yeah.
It's an executive summary that just has literally, you could look at the whole thing, Brian, in 4 minutes, the whole thing in 4 minutes. And you're like, okay, I know enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you're raising money, that's what you got to start with. You can't just say, hey, I got a note. It'll get you 6%. You interested? Right. You got to give them a little something else to make it happen. Well, I know we're wrapping up the show here, but I wanted to go ahead and ask a couple more questions if we can fit it into time here. Kevin asked, when you broker notes for cash today, do you use a personal name or an LLC for the transaction, that kind of stuff? Let me just start before we even dig into it and say, nothing we say is going to be legal advice. I'm not an attorney. Eddie and Martha aren't going to claim to be attorneys, but you know, Eddie, if you want to speak to this, I think that every investor knows you really don't want to ever do anything in your personal name if you can get away from it. But any insight you'd like to have for Kevin?
Yeah, probably if you could operate in an LLC, that would be best. You could probably have if you just had your first deal or two and you just wanted to do a DBA, a doing business as, you could start there, and then you probably could morph into an LLC once you make a little money. You think that's fair?
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Peter asked how to protect the notes from wealth taxes, right? This is actually, Peter, this is something that Martha was referring to. If you missed the beginning of the show, she's doing a lot of these deals in tax advantaged accounts. There's some really creative ways that the law allows you to build this wealth in a tax advantaged environment. And so I'd encourage you to continue to look into that as well.
We're a big fan of a Roth IRA.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you've been following Eddie for any amount of time, man, a lot of what he talks about is make sure you're doing this in a way to where you can legally not have to pay taxes on this stuff, right? And so I know there's a lot of questions coming in, but we're running out of time for the show today. I really appreciate everybody for jumping on and engaging. I love seeing all these questions coming in right here at the end. It's great. Thanks for sticking around for the after party. We'll plan on seeing everybody next Wednesday. Make sure you tune in live, jump in early, and bring your questions as early as you can so we can engage with you. Again, thanks, Eddie and Martha. Really appreciate y'all for coming on. We'll see everybody next week. We'll see you on the other side.
Bye-bye.
Bye.